Well, it's the great escape of the Facebook rapist Thabo Bester has brought conditions into prisons into sharp focus, but I'm afraid it's not the first time. But let's bring in someone who's been following this for a very long time, constitutional law expert, Professor Pierre de Vos, writing an article on the Bester saga, joining us now. Morning to you, Prof, and touching on the Jali Commission's finding. And it's important for viewers to know, as I say hello to you, that this actually goes all the way back to 2006, and you go even further back, taking a look at the article. It's a 25-year contract that government signed with G4S back in 2000. So this mess has been around for a while.
Yes, so it's quite interesting. I mean, because of the bizarre story, I went back to the Jali Commission report, which is there are 11, I think, interim reports. And you see from this that there is a whole culture of non-accountability, of lawlessness within the Department of Correctional Services. And even 10 years after the Commission report was published, researchers assessed this and said, well, not that much has actually been fixed since that time. So there's clearly a systemic problem within the system, which is then made worse by a contract with a private contractor where the department is sort of hands off, and with a company, with the parent company at least, that's known all around the world for its racism, its corruption, its abuse of the prisoners, and so on. And so the big question for me is, why hasn't this actually been fixed? Why hasn't the contract with the private company not been cancelled? And of course, how does that then impact in how the department has dealt with this matter? Because from court records, they should have known, at least from the end of May last year, that it is not likely that the person who escaped was, in fact, Mr. Thabo Bester.
Yeah, it's raising many questions. Yesterday, we had a chance to hear from Ollie Barrett, our UK correspondent. Prof, I'm not sure if you saw the interview, but he was also focusing on G4S over in the United Kingdom, and the government there also asking questions about how they run their prisons. So it's not just a local issue, it's certainly an international issue as well. Tell me why, though, the escape seems to be a bit manufactured. You use the word a tad manufactured. Is the ANC leadership's outrage? Why is it manufactured, do you think?
So the Secretary General of the ANC said that they are enraged, in fact, by what happened, and they might even consider firing the relevant ministers if they don't improve. But the problem is that this didn't happen yesterday. The escape and the kind of culture within the system, the cover-up that happened afterwards, it is part of the system. It has been for 20 years. It hasn't been fixed. So the problem is yes, the ministers, the officials, but it is the whole system and the failure to implement consequence management, if you want to put it that way. It's a failure to hold people accountable so that the system can be fixed. I mean, prison services all over the world, there's always some opportunities for corruption, and so one has to be vigilant. And this, it seems, has not happened because there is not really a culture of holding people accountable, not only through the criminal justice system, but also through other mechanisms.
And I'll start saying goodbye to you in a moment, Prof. We could talk about this all day, but I'd like to get your thoughts then from a legal perspective, as you and I have just been discussing, and it's also in your article. By the way, if you want to read the good Prof's article, it's here's the website address, constitutionallyspeaking.co.za. It's one of the latest articles, Constitutionally Speaking. Go read it for yourself. It's a great read, Prof. But what happens now, unless Ground Up, which is the media publication which broke the story, had done that, no one would even know any different about Thabo Bester at the moment. Accountability, as you say, is almost non-existent. This has been around for a very, very long time. How is this going to change anything now that we're sitting here talking about it? How do we hold the right people accountable as the media or as a country? We can't leave that, it seems, to the ANC, because the critics will say, well, not much is going to change.
Yes, so obviously the one thing that is happening, there is now in fact a real investigation into the escape, and the police says they are investigating murder charge and a wrongful escape charge against Mr. Bester. But the larger question is how who was responsible or turned a blind eye after it happened to this? The head of that particular prison, is that person going to be held accountable? Anybody else in the system? Is the contract with the private company going to be cancelled? If not, why not? We already know from about 2013 there were reports about illegally injecting some of the prisoners with tranquilizers to keep them quiet. This is all against their rights, egregious breaches of rights. Nothing has happened. So there are bigger questions about how we're going to fix this system so that this kind of bizarre thing will not happen, or that it will make it much more difficult for people to apparently what happened, to bribe their way out of prison in such a spectacular manner.
And Prof, I'm going to leave this as my last question to you. The sense I get here as well from looking at your article, and I know you spoke to Ruth Hopkins as well, investigative journalist, and not necessarily what Ruth Hopkins had to say, but you allude to it in your article as well. There's money being made here. There's money exchanging hands. This didn't happen for free, did it?
Yes, so this is one of the problems with many of these stories, is that there is money being made, and it is often facilitated or it is often made possible because of connections that specific individuals has to politicians, to political parties, in specifically the governing party. And so there's even a bigger question about how the ANC, as a governing party, deals with this, and whether it will hold its own members accountable who are involved in this kind of actions. As we know from the Zondo Commission report, the Zondo Commission said and bemoaned the fact that the party is not really one to hold its own members accountable. And when it pointed out not one single person in the ANC member has been disciplined by the ANC for any involvement in state capture, corruption, or whatever. So that is the kind of things I think that voters will keep in mind when they vote in the national election next year.
Yeah, and it is just next year. That's why these conversations are so important. Prof, thank you as always for your time. If you'd like to take a look at the article, the website, again, it's the main article on Pierre de Vos's Constitutionally Speaking website. It is constitutionallyspeaking.co.za. It's a great read. If you haven't had a chance, look for the article. ANC leadership's outrage over Thabo Bester escape seems a tad manufactured. That's, if you will, is the headline for that article. My thanks to the good Prof. Pierre de Vos.